Alright, guys, this is a big one, so you know exactly what side he's on now. The Obama administration has publicly come out, maybe not on television, but has come out and said that American Muslims can now join U.S. Muslim military groups overseas, basically the ones that America, among others, are, sponsoring. But if I read my history right, ladies and gentlemen, we've sponsored every terrorist group, al-qaida, Taliban, Hamas, al-qaida, ISIL, ISIS, and I believe this would refer to groups similar to the Syrian rebels. And what this basically says is that the Obama administration will allow American Muslims to go train with U.S. military for these groups overseas. But basically what he is saying is that American Muslims can now join the U.S. Muslim military groups overseas. So this would be like the Kurdish fighters, I would imagine, would be in that group. I'm sorry, Peshmerga, I'm better than that. Just say the Kurdish fighters. The Syrian rebel program. I've seen the title of that group, but I continually, for some reason or another, cannot recall the name. It starts with an M. I believe it starts with an M. And this is what is going on. This is exactly what happened during the fall of Rome. Basically, special citizens get special privileges to go fight, while the rest of the current gen military basically just trains them to go fight in their stead. So when they lose their ass off, or come back and kill 1,000 citizens that are white, when the white people were not in the military war, that, oh, it's a bad thing now. So this is a very good thing and a very bad thing. I just wish the Christians would step their asses up. I'm sorry. I'm really sick and tired of ministers and stuff not telling their people, hey, it's time to start Christian groups overseas fighting these assholes. And I know we got them, but it's time to mainstream this shit the same way the Muslims are doing it. And, I mean, we really need this in the Christian community. We need our guys on the ground. If the banking units are not going to put us on the ground, and, the Muslims are doing it for us. Why? Because that's who's in power right now, the Muslims, through Obama. So let me get you to this so you don't think this is just a bunch of crap, because it isn't. Obama administration declares that Muslim jihadis can join American military forces to be trained by U.S. soldiers. The way I read this is basically the Muslims who want to go off and fight can join American military forces to be trained by U.S. soldiers. To be trained by U.S. soldiers. That's the key. In other words, this would be like the Syrian rebel program. The Muslims in the Syrian rebel program to be trained by U.S. soldiers. This is how I'm reading this. The Obama administration has now given the invitation for jihadists to join military forces in the Middle East to be trained by U.S. troops so that they can learn how to fight against Bashar al-Assad, Middle East analyst Robert Olson reported on the story. Consequences of the U.S. Gulf Cooperation Council summit in Camp David last month already seem to be falling into place, with significant geopolitical consequences regarding civil wars in Syria and Iraq. The first result seems to be that the Obama administration will offer no significant upgrade to the 3,000 U.S. troops already in Iraq. The president announced last week he'd be adding a few hundred more military to the Gulf Arabs. But Gulf Arabs will supply the fighting forces. In return, those countries will acquiesce to the U.S.-Iran nuclear agreement. In addition, there are several hundred military personnel in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. You get the idea. And they're basically training reported 1,500 vetted fighters from Syria. But the vetting process is haphazard, and undoubtedly many fighters who previously fought with other jihadist groups have joined vetted fighters. The administration's assessment of the American people don't care much about the wars in Iraq and Syria is correct, in spite of the hawkish members of Congress who, you know, want more boots on the ground. The situation has quickly changed when Republicans were basically asked and elected. You get the idea. So at the summit, the Obama administration also accepted that jihadi forces, some affiliated with al-Qaida, could also join the battle against the al-Assad regime. And this is just basically propaganda here, so I won't say that. But this is the idea here, folks. And basically what this is calling for, and I don't know what the process is, but Obama administration says that American Muslims can now join U.S. Muslim military groups overseas. And remember, they just named al-Qaida. That was under the Clinton administration. No, that was under the Bush administration. Taliban were under the Clintons. ISIL is under Obama. So you guys get this idea. They're saying that now American Muslims can now join U.S. Muslim military groups overseas. I'm not Muslim, but I was willing to go join the Peshmerga. Problem that I ran into is that, one, you don't know if they're vetted for or not, so you don't know who you're joining, everything else. Along with that, once you get past that process, I personally have a lot of medical problems. And although they want good, strong people to help in fight, it also comes down to the point, of whether it takes 3 people to drag you off the field if you get shot in the leg or something. So there's that. So the Obama administration has come out and said American Muslims can now join the U.S. Muslim military groups overseas. Remember, most of the ones that I can name are groups that are seen as terror groups. So, we have the Peshmerga fighters, obviously. We have the Syrian rebels, which are under Obama, which is supposed to not be a terrorist group, but we all know they're probably the recruiters for ISIS. Let's not lie about it. We have al-Nusra, which is supposed to be turning to fight instead of in the Golan against Israel, for Israel in Syria. And this is the new thing, and this is why the Christian groups need to hustle it, and they need to get this done. We need churches sending our young guys that want to go fight in these groups. And we need to send them out there. We need to just do that and be done with it. These are serious minor conflicts, which they're starting to see that only special groups of people want to fight. And it shouldn't always be, let's send the Muslims. Because sooner or later, you're going to be surrounded by Muslims who know how to fight, and not enough regular people who do. And I guarantee you, with the numbers dropping off in the American military forces, sooner or later, those groups that they're fighting in are going to overpower us by numbers. Now, granted, we got advantages, this and that, but this is a big shocker, folks. The Obama administration has said that American Muslims can now join U.S. Muslim military groups overseas. Remember, every one of those terror groups you can name was at one point or another a U.S. Muslim military group. So that just tells you exactly how many open windows there are after probably a 90-day period or something to them moving into the darker groups of whatever they're affiliated with. So this is the way that our future is going to be, folks. If you want to fight, you're going to go fight in the limited warfare groups. But you got to be a certain sect, a certain religion, and a certain ideology. And you're going to be trained by U.S. troops, and they're just going to stand by and watch you fight or die. I know the U.S. military is fighting. I have currently several people in the family who are in the U.S. military who have been deployed. My nephew has had a few close calls when he was in Afghanistan. He is home with his wife and his child now. Everything is good. But this is basically a big one, folks. The Obama administration is now saying that American Muslims can now join U.S. Muslim military groups overseas. Thank you.